Welcome to the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity Podcast. Join Stewart Heath for down-to-earth conversations with top professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders who have a story to tell. Let's get rolling.
Hello, everybody. It's Stewart Heath here. I'm founder and CEO of Harvard Grace Capital. And we've got an exciting episode for you today. We are joined by Missy Phillips here in Nashville. She's the CFO at Market Street Equities. Missy, thank you so much for taking the time today. And as I like to say, anybody with a C-level title has no time. So it means a lot that you take time out, especially as we're recording this just a couple of weeks before the end of the year. So thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you inviting me.
Yes, ma'am. Well, let's jump into it. When you think back over your career, is there a time that you would consider it was a game changer? Maybe I assume you didn't dream of being a chief financial officer from the time you were 8 years old. So, talk through your career for us and tell us about the game changer of why you're here today.
I think I'm going to be a little different, and I don't really necessarily have a game changer. I've kind of had a very slow, steady, deliberate career that got me where I am today. I'm really okay with being the person behind the scenes, the one at the desk, the one there making sure that the work is getting done and letting everyone else be the flashy spokesman out there. So that kind of leads you to a little bit as a head down kind of know your company. I've been very, very blessed in my career that each of the spots that I stopped for a little while taught me something that got me where I am today. So I've never had a job that I looked back on and thought, okay, I never should have been there. I learned nothing from that. And that it's always helped me grow toward where I am today. So it's not that it was like flash, hey, let's go be the CFO of Market Street. It's been a very deliberate, very hardworking, heads down kind of path that got me here.
Even back in college, were you always wanting to be in the financial field?
Actually, I really didn't know what I wanted to be when I went to college. So when college kids ask me today, they say, well, I don't know what I want to major in. I didn't know what I wanted to major in. I got to college, the advisor said, hey, you look good in math. Why don't you go try this out? Because I had zero clue about what path I wanted when I left high school and went to college. And when I got there, I did enjoy the things that were there. I followed that advice. I went down the accounting path and found out that I was pretty good at it, pretty good at numbers and like keeping things together and in order. And so that kind of led me there. So it wasn't a lifelong dream to grow up to be a CPA or the CFO, but it was a very, I wouldn't say I got lucky. I just got blessed that I was in the right place at the right time with the right mentors to get me here.
Yeah, I'm a CPA as well, and I always like it. Well, you must be really good at math. It's like, yes, I can add and subtract and sometimes multiply. And it's like, as if that's what accounting is. And, it's, as you know, it's sometimes more art than science, but we don't want to go down that road. We want people to think that we're being creative in our accounting. So
no, but it is funny. If you were to ask me to add numbers on the spot, I'll get that deer in the headlight look. I'm very reliant on my 10 key over here, and I can do it as fast as anybody. It's one of those things that you're really good at math. I'm really good at figuring out puzzles. And I think that's what you kind of need.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. One of my favorite quips, that makes people do double take. I just said, well, I don't know. I'm not very good with numbers but it gets a double take every time. And because I'm in charge of a lot of people's numbers,
And numbers can come into my head and out of my head. People will go, "What you know how big those numbers are? They're just numbers." That's so right. You can tell me you make $100 million, you can make $10 million, $1 million. And after a while, the number just leaves me. So
they're just placeholders,
That's right.
And as long as they balance, we're usually okay. So, sometimes the next question is very similar to the first, but anyway, I like to talk to people who've had a career long enough to had a bump in the road or something didn't really go as planned, and it usually impacts their career path. Can you share a time where you hit a bump in the road like that, or just?
Yeah, I have a couple. One of which was when I was younger with my righteous indignation, and I quit a job without a job. And that, on principle, thinking that was the right thing to do. And it worked out great for me in the end. But at the time, it was one of those decisions that's like, okay, now what do I do? But I was very fortunate that it was right before the job that I have right now, which I've been at for 24 years. So I was looking to make a move back to Middle Tennessee anyway. And actually, this job was in the paper. Kids today don't have any idea about actually finding a job in the classified ads and looking it up and calling them and sending my resume on paper. But that's actually what happened. So that was kind of a game changer for me because I really felt like I was in the right to quit. And then once you quit, you're like, okay, what do you do now? Yeah. So that was definitely a game changer and a bump in the road. The other bump in the road that I don't know, it's just kind of when you think you're an A student, you always go through an A student. You don't do well when you do B's and C's. You don't do well when you don't get pats on the back and atta girls all the time. And there was a time in my career where my management style was kind of called into question. I'm a little too strident or a little too stern and have to have it my way. And that was a game changer for me because you either suck it up and go figure out what it is you can do to address that issue, or you get your feelings hurt and you get sour. And I chose the first path, which was, let me figure out how to be a different manager. Let me figure out how to adjust the way that I see things in this in the light. And it was a big game changer for me. It was a really big bump because it hurt my feelings. And then it also did hurt your integrity to your core. You're thinking, I'm the greatest accountant ever. Why would you even ask that? And I'm the smartest. And then to have that come into play when your whole life you've kind of been treated that way was a little tough, but it made me grow, made me become a different person. And I think I'm a much better manager, a much better accountant, a much better team player after that would happen.
Oh, yeah, I had something similar like that. But, we spent all that time in school and stuff learning our FASBs and our auditing standards. And I don't remember a whole lot about how to manage people. And that is hard stuff. Well, here's the question. Did you just adjust, or do you agree that you were too stern or too
strident? I would agree that I was. I had gotten, I guess, a little bit, big for your britches is not probably the right term, but a little bit more of, hey, I know what's going on. I'm in charge, which kind of led a little bit of, I'm not really even sure what's the right word I want to look at, because it's not like I was overconfident, but it was almost like, oh, I know which way it needs to be done. And I really took it to heart when they talked to me about that. And that is in your career path when you've always been, like I graduated top of my class, I graduated valedictorian in college, I worked at one of the big, it was the Big Eight when I started. So that
me too.
ages me a lot. I worked for Deloitte, but it's kind of a funny story. I got hired before they merged with Touche Ross. They merged like the summer that I got hired. So I called my recruiter after you heard that and go, hey, do I have a job? You don't know what's going on. And one of the things they said is, oh, you do. You're the least one paid. So you definitely have a job. It's the ones in the middle that were a little bit scary. So, but when I started there, I was always great reviews, never had anybody ever say anything bad about either my work or my management style or anything. And so it was very humbling. And I took it to heart. I prayed a lot about it, talked to my husband. Shocking. But to learn and become that and actually address it was a big deal for me.
Well, those are those growing pains that we have. But yeah, I remember when I learned to manage people, and it was probably a lot later in life when you did. And I'd gone to, I'd taken a job outside of public accounting, managing a set of retail stores down in a rural area. And yeah, I had spent my entire career, I guess the woke term would be working with the 1%. And professionals, and not, next thing I know, I'm down here managing 50 or so, minimum wage people for the most part. And they just wouldn't show up for work. And I've never seen such behavior. But I figured out what motivated them and was able to relate to them, in where they were at, and it was life changing for me. So
it is life changing, and you always want people to like you.
Yeah.
And so in this particular case, you were like, "What do you mean they don't like me?" And you're like, it wasn't necessarily they didn't like you; they didn't like your style. And to change your style when it comes to managing people, when you've been used to doing it all on your own, it was a humbling experience, but it was overall good. I think that I would not be where I am today if that didn't happen. I could have taken the path where, you've hurt my feelings, calling my management style into question. I'm going to quit and I'm going to go do something different. But that's not what I chose to do. I thought, you know what? You're probably right. It's probably a little bit of me, a little bit of them, a little bit of us, and let's see how we can work this out. Yeah. And I think that was one of the big things that I learned, that sometimes the grass isn't greener and you just need to get the plow in and do the work. And that's what I learned then.
Yeah. And no doubt that you would not be where you are today, because you're not going to move up in an organization until you can manage other people.
No.
Because ain't nobody can do it all. So you got to have people working under you to do the work while you manage the work and plan the work and all this other stuff. So yeah, that's a good story. Yeah. Thank you, Missy, for that one. All right. Next question. Sometimes I hate learning new things. And you'll identify with this. This is my reporting year for CPE. So I've gotten a whole bunch of that. I love that stuff. I like getting new knowledge. Sometimes you got to learn things that don't seem to have much use. How do you stay current? How do you learn new things? And how do you make sure you're on top of whatever you need to know?
Well, just like you, it's out of necessity. I have that requirement. I'm an even year reporter though, so I get 20 hours this year, so yay for me. But I also, when I came here at Market Street, I did go ahead and get my broker's license. So I also have the real estate requirement that I have to for continuing education. I found that when I was much younger in accounting, that it was more of a mundane kind of tax stuff to get your CPE. But as I've gotten older, I'm very grateful that I have to, because there's so many things I need to learn that I'm so busy that I would put it off and not. I'm like, we're involved like in our real estate development group. We've been a participant in opportunity zone developments. We've been doing all kinds of things with environmental, all things that are kind of outside my wheelhouse. And so to have that opportunity to look at a class somewhere, a CCH class or a class online or somewhere that you can go to find that information and get credit for it, yay for me. But I'm very deliberate about what I pick on my education. Most of it is very real estate specific. A lot of it is tax partnership specific. Because that is what benefits us the most. In real estate, we do all of our entities are LLCs, partnerships. So understanding how that works is very important. I've really been grateful, though, with the real estate side, on the brokerage side, to be able to get in and getting classes like from FOMO or from the ICSC or things like that are relevant to calculating. I mean, even figuring out how to calculate your operating expenses or your common area expenses and all those things. You get the concept when you're a CPA side and when you're auditing those things, but actually doing them and going, hey, how do I bump this up? How do I do this? How do I count this? It's very vital for me to be able to go find that education out there or ways other people have done it. So that the motivation at first was, I've got to do it. The motivation second, then that overcame the first one, was I really need to know how to do these things all across the board.
What about on a daily basis? What's your favorite news source?
Well, I usually listen to Fox News, the Daily Wire. I get a lot of stuff off the internet. I like podcasts. I like Jordan Peterson podcasts. I like listening to things like that keep me. I've got a commute. I drive from Columbia every day.
Oh, wow.
So
I'm in Spring Hill right now. So.
All right. Well, you're a 47-mile commute down to the Gulch in downtown Nashville, which is where we work. And so 47 miles one way, door to door. So I'm able to get I can get my daily Bible reading on tape done on my commute. I can listen to a podcast on the way in. I can also do some portions of my continuing education, the list part. I don't take the test while I'm driving, but I'm able to get quite a bit of things listened to there, so that when I do get to work, I'm done with that. When I get home, I'm done with that, and I can move on to the things that got to get done.
That's great. That's great. Let's shift gears a little bit to the world of personal finance. I love to ask people and find out, because the answers are all over the board. So again, we're not asking for account numbers or balances or anything like that. I do love to ask my guests, which are successful business people, C-level executives, how do you invest your personal wealth? And we're looking for asset classes and vehicles. If you can talk about that a little bit.
Well, obviously, real estate's of an interest of mine. Being a partner here, that's a big part of my portfolio is the real estate side. But on a personal level, outside of that, I'm very much a diversifier. So I have some things as simple as give me a municipal bond, and then also give me my mutual funds. I have individual stocks that I'm also invested in. Obviously, I push my people here to take advantage of the company assets, the 401k, profit sharing, things like that we have here that makes available for our folks. And so I want to push that as much as I possibly can. I've got, I do have an annuity and an insurance policy. So I have the gamut of groups, not into Beanie Babies. So no Beanie Babies, but I do give out to that. No
crypto.
No, I do not. I'm not opposed to crypto. I just haven't taken the time to go figure out exactly what it is I need to do to be invested in it, which one's the right one, and so on and so forth. So I'm not opposed to investing in it. I'm grateful for all those people that did it to begin with, but it's currently not portfolio.
Right. I'm not opposed to it either. I just don't understand it, and I'm not motivated to get there. I don't really understand currency trading either when it gets to foreign currency, but.
Well, they'll sell anything. So, I mean, you can invest in anything you want to, because everybody will sell just about anything.
Yeah. So, any particular industry sectors that you're high on, or are you just all of them?
I'm very much American companies. I do like to still invest in the blue chip type ones, the dividend paying things. As I'm getting older, I'm looking for that dividend type payment so that there's some cash flow coming in. I do have tech because I'm not crazy. So I think everybody has to be in the tech sector or you're missing out. I'm a little hesitant on the AI side. I kind of look at it like, I don't know if you remember way back when computers came out, they said, okay, you're never going to have any accountants anymore because now we have computers. And all that it did was shift what we do. It didn't shift the fact that they didn't have accountants. I kind of see that when it comes to AI. Everybody's like, oh, these sectors are not going to have no jobs anymore. And I'm like, that's not the case. Their jobs will shift. If we do AI to do certain portions of our job, then all that will mean we'll shift from the doers to the reviewers. So, because you're still going to have to review it. The computer's never going to get it exactly right. People don't get it exactly right. So you're always going to have that function. So I'm not concerned about that. But that didn't have anything to do with investing, but you kind of got off on a tangent there. But I am invested in technology. I'm invested in the medical field as well. Later in life, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which is kind of odd to be older and get diagnosed with it. But that got me interested in the Medtronics and all those fields where they're making the great things like the pumps and the things that diabetics can use to be functional. It's very difficult to be a pancreas. And so having to be my own pancreas, I really am interested in making sure that those pumps are working the way they need to be working.
Absolutely. Well, I'm type 2. I think you got it far worse than I do. So I think having type 1's a lot harder. So that's great. Thank you. You're talking about the AI and being replaced. It reminds me of a couple of things. I think it was the 1986 Tax Act. When they reduced the rates down to 2 levels for individuals. Of course, that lasted about a minute and a half. And people were running around. I was working for Pricewaterhouse at the time. Says, well, it's just going to put you all out of business, isn't it? And I'm like, and my dad he had one job. He worked for Ernst & Ernst. And at the end, it was Ernst & Winnie for 30-something years. And he was a partner there. And I would talk to him about that. He was retiring as I was getting into business. And, the whole game is what's income? Anybody can apply rates to an income.
Absolutely.
The whole game is what's income,
That's what they all say when they go, oh, if we go to flat tax, we're not taxed right.
Yeah.
It's not the math that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's figuring out what is income. Exactly right. You nailed it. It's what goes into that number.
Yeah.
And people don't get that. So it's like, I don't care if it's a flat tax. I don't care if it's graduated tax, whatever. It's still got to figure out what that first number is.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I would be glad to not make income off of taxes anymore if we could, if we just got rid of the whole thing. But anyway, and the other thing about AI,
for a whole other podcast, right?
Absolutely. The other thing about AI, I think it's not the professionals that are going to be hurt. It's like all other technology. It's the low skilled or the unskilled people that are going to get hurt. I mean, you can already see it at McDonald's where they hardly have anybody in there except the ones cooking the food because you're ordering off of a kiosk and all that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's my soapbox. So, all right, last question, coming down to the end here. Missy, if you were mentoring someone or if somebody just wanted to follow in your footsteps, what one piece of advice would you give them?
More than one, but I'd say my biggest one would be pick your big rocks. I don't know if you've ever seen that. We did this for our youth group years ago where it was like you have a bucket and in the bucket you've got a bunch of rocks, you got some sand, you got some little rocks, and you got some water. And your job is to fit all of that in the bucket. And the key point on that is the only way that all fits in the bucket is if the big rocks go in first. Mm. And so you have to put the big rocks in, then the little rocks, then the sand, then the water to get it all to fit in the bucket. And so the big rocks, of course, being, your faith, your family, your values and all those things. You have to pick what those big rocks are to you. But if you don't figure out what those are early on and put them in the bucket, it's going to be a very hard road for you. So I think that's very important. My second piece of advice as far as my career is don't be afraid to be diversified. When I came to Market Street, I had been very fortunate that I was able to work audit and tax and bookkeeping and the whole gamut of the accounting side. That has benefited me more than just about any intelligence level I could have had. Because when I get here on the other side of not being in public accounting, then you've got to do it all. Then it helps to understand everything goes into the tax return and everything goes in the debt pieces, the bank reconciliations, how to post payables. All those things are important. So never discount learning any piece of the part of your job. Spend as much time as you can understanding the processes, because one of the things that we struggle with, as other groups do as well, is how do you make sure that the most important people to you don't leave? But the big thing about that is all people, even the most loyal people, have life events that may cause them to have to leave. And you want to rely on your people, but sometimes it just can't be helped. And if that's the case, you've got to have a good process in place so that someone can follow in and come in and step in, not exactly where they were, because you can't replace people, but if you could get it down to a little bit of processes so that when they come in, that it's not as hard for them. We used to always joke we had a red truck book, so that if I got ran over by a red truck, then how could they pull out the book and make sure that they could still get it done? And you can't be afraid to be replaced. Your job as an employee should be to make sure that they can replace you. And then our job as your employer should be to make it where you don't want to be replaced. So it's kind of a little give and take.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff, Missy. I appreciate that. I agree completely. I agree completely about being diversified. I've been unemployed a few times in my very long career at this point. And it's always fascinated me that they were not interested in people that had lots of different experiences. They were looking for somebody who was a specialist. And I was like, who are those people? I wondered if they even existed. And sure, I get that you're trying to find a round peg for the round hole, but you're a much more well-rounded business person if you've had all the different experiences. And I remember the first time I left public accounting, and I took on somebody's bookkeeping job, and I realized it was an easy one. I was like, I don't know how to do this. I knew how to audit it, but I didn't know best practices on how to do it. And certainly echo, you're talking about building systems so that you can plug and play as people, and so that the system, is the sustainability piece of your organization. So I love that.
One of the big things, like right here at Market Street, we've got asset management, we have property management, we have leasing, we have development, and then we have the accounting department. There is not a single department at Market Street that doesn't hit accounting.
Right.
So we have to understand the building of the pro forma. We have to understand the building of the building. We have to understand the leasing and the debt and all the pieces, and then go on and stick this on a financial statement and a tax return and report it up the chain to someone else who's the partner in that and how that affects them. So you can't just come in and go, okay, I'm the best bank reconciler in the whole wide world, and that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. You have to be able to go, okay, let me understand this whole gamut. And that's the exciting, I know people getting geeking out on accounting. That's the exciting part of accounting, is one thing I learned in public accounting was you needed to pick whichever group you were working on. What is their one thing that is different from somewhere else? Like if you were working on healthcare, make sure you understand their medical billing. If you were working in the construction business, make sure you understand under and over billing. If you're working in real estate, make sure you just understand everything. But everybody's got cash, everybody's got AP, everybody's got those things. So getting a well-rounded thing and then concentrate on the thing you don't know was invaluable to me. And I think it's benefited me greatly here at Market Street and throughout my career, being willing to look at the other things and not go, this is my job, only my job. I don't mind loading the dishwasher. I got to pay for the dishwasher. I might as well understand how the dishwasher works. Just getting that far into the weeds sometimes is very good, I think, and then pull yourself out to see the whole picture.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Missy Phillips, thank you so much for taking your time out here this afternoon. We really appreciate it. And I want to thank the audience for watching another episode of the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity podcast. We hope that you'll come back and watch our next episode. I'm your host, Stewart Heath, and thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thanks for tuning in to the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity podcast. If you'd like to be a guest, visit growthgraceprosperity.com/guest. We'd love to hear your story.